Hello, everybody. I'm Scott Moore, and you're watching the SMC Journal podcast, where it's all about performance engineering in IT today. We have had a sponsor for our show for most of the year, and we're already into episode 42. Really, has it been that long? And we haven't really showcased their product. And today, that's exactly what I want to do. And before we do that, let's talk about the sponsors of today's episode, which include Micro Focus. This is a company that I first started out load testing with their product, LoadRunner, and they now have the largest community of performance engineers in the world. Performance matters to them, and you can check out their LoadRunner family page and performance testing playlist on YouTube by clicking on the links in our show notes and checking out that QR code that's on your screen right now. This episode is also sponsored by StormForge. StormForge is trying to help companies realize the true value of their Kubernetes deployed applications. So they focus on AI-powered software. It's designed to help your DevOps team release their software with confidence. Let your IT leaders finally realize that promise that they were given about going cloud native. Faster innovation, higher quality, resiliency, scalability, and efficiency. For more information, go to stormforge.io or click that QR code. And our other sponsor today is Supervisor.com. You should stop losing money and know when your site is going to be slow. Know if you can actually pass the Black Friday test. Make sure you track your hosting provider to make sure they're providing you with the service that you expected. They have an easy one-click load test solution, and you can find out more about that at supervisor.com, or you can continue to watch this episode, because on today's episode, we're talking with the founder of Supervisor.com. We're going to find out what it's all about, and we're going to show a demo. So let's go into that interview with Lauri, and I want to apologize for my rather haggard appearance. It's a little bit worse than it is here because it was a couple of days ago. I was actually filming a skit for the performance tour, and I needed to look as haggardly as possible, and you'll find out in a future episode what that was all about, but it turned out really well. So in the meantime, I'm going to interview my guest today. Hello, Lauri. Thanks for being on the show.
Hi.
So
Great
why
to be
don't you, I want to thank you so much for being a sponsor of the SMC Journal podcast. It shows real thought leadership. And I'm sorry that we haven't been able to show Supervisor.com on the show until now, but we have this chance. And I'd like for you to talk a little bit about how you got started with Supervisor.com and how you got started in performance testing as well.
Yeah, sure. So my background is actually in web hosting. I started a web hosting company in Finland in 1997. And I did that for like 20 years. So I started with like domains and shared web hosting, and then like dedicated servers. They were like more like workstations with Linux installed there. And then little by little, the company grew, and then we started to do virtual servers and more advanced stuff. And one of the things that always the customers were asking me were like, okay, we have this ad campaign coming. Do we have enough servers? Is all the settings correct? Do we have enough power? And I was a little bit frustrated that there was no easy way for me to answer that question. You know, there were, of course, tools to do load testing and stuff like that, but those are a little bit, you need to have expertise to know how to use them. And then I couldn't really roll out that to my company, so that everyone in the customer service could, help the customer with these questions. So that was the idea. And then we did already this kind of functional testing. So we tested that the different features on the customer websites were working, so browser automation and stuff like that. And then we just thought, how about if we do that in a massive scale? And that's sort of the start of Supervisor. So we started to build this tool where you can run from 1 to 100,000 browsers at the same time, and it's all automated. So they'll click around the sites and they'll add products to the shopping cart and do all that stuff. And that's sort of the start of Supervisor.
So it sounds like what you're trying to do is make it easier for someone that doesn't have a whole lot of deep technical experience load testing to be able to do point load situations. Maybe they're working with the marketing department and they're planning on some big campaign. You just need to be able to get that information. Are we ready as quick as possible? Is that right?
Yeah, and but also I think we have also now a little bit more technical audience that just want to like save some time, and maybe they don't have like a dedicated resource for doing the load testing, and I think it's rather hard to find guys that are really good at that. So basically, just trying to give a tool that you can easily run a test and see what happens on Black Friday, and you don't have to know anything. You just enter your domain and you're good to go. But also, of course, the main audience is e-commerce owners. They can test their sites on their own, and then they can see if their techies are doing the right things or not. And not to learn that when everything crashes and so on.
So you find that your main customers are in more of the e-commerce retail space, shopping
Yeah,
cart things of that nature. And
yeah.
are you working with specific roles outside of like the norm? Like, or do you have marketing people calling you saying, "Hey, can I go ahead and do this? Can I run this?" Or who do you normally talk to?
Yeah, it's usually the sort of the business, so the marketing people or the business owners. So those who are like responsible that everything should be working, and they've had some bad experiences. So their techies being like, yeah, we have load balancing and we have cloud, so we have no problems here. But then something happens, their product launch goes, the site goes down, and then they have to fix it, and everybody's unhappy. So yeah, it's sort of these type of people that just want to have make sure that everything is working, and then we usually also help them a little bit and their team to fix those issues, what is happening, because we have a lot of experience on that.
Can you share any kind of like real world example of anything that's happened? Maybe it's recently, or maybe since you've offered Supervisor.com, where there's been this dramatic moment where they realize, oh, we thought we were ready, but we weren't, or they have to make some drastic changes to be prepared?
Yeah, well, one of the most extreme cases where there was this like online um, concert that this company was arranging, and they were expecting to have 100,000 users logging into this concert. So a little bit like this kind of metaverse, but maybe like early stages of that. And their team said that they had load tested it, and it should handle 100,000 users. And then, but the business owner just wanted to, try it one more time and see that what really happens. So then what we did, we started to, and they wanted to test right away with 10,000 users. And we started to roll up the users, and we didn't get even to 200 before the site already crashed.
If I had a nickel for every time I had heard that story, and it seems to be a lot around ticketing events, concert events, things of that nature.
Yeah.
And I see this on the Perf Bites News of the Damned. You always see that on Twitter, and it's really a common thing. And I don't think that the marketing department thinks about the idea of bots trying to snatch up all those tickets at the same time real users are. So the biggest complaint I see on Twitter are users saying, 2 minutes after the site was supposed to be ready to sell tickets, I can't buy a ticket and the site is down. And usually it's the bot traffic. So I'm sure you run into that a lot, right?
Sure. And then also I think it's so easy to log into one of the any load testing softwares that there are. But then if you don't know what you're doing, you can get like totally wrong results. You might not like test the whole thing. You just test like your API calls or something like that, but you are not testing what actually happens when the people come. And that's about how good are you in that trade. So I think that's one of the problems, that you can, test, and even these tools give you like results that, okay, yeah, you're good to go, but you just did it wrong. So you didn't know what you're doing really. So yeah.
That's where we get into the art of creating what we would call the perfect storm. We want to create something that really would happen, but a worst case situation, what happens, and somebody who may be disconnected from the business, they may not know that information, so they may run like what we would call a stress test and just hammer it with no think time or whatever. But then there's probably somebody on the business who says, no, this is the real behavior we would see. If you get those two people together to talk, then and create what you think really would happen, the real type of behavior, at least what you think is going to happen, then you've got this more realistic output from the test. So to me, it would seem like that would be the important conversation that needs to happen before they come to you or before they try to execute that. Do you ever have to provide some advice to customers or any additional consulting services to help guide them? Or you just say, look, it's you swipe a credit card and you push play?
No. We of course we try to help the customers, and with this case we had to jump in there because they were so lost. They had like 2 weeks time to go from 100 users to 100,000 users. So there was a lot of work to be done. But then when you know where to search and what to do, there's always ways to solve it. And
Interesting. So I know this is primarily a web testing product, a web protocol. But
yeah.
From a monitoring perspective, do you tie into any other monitoring for your test analysis, or do you work with something like Prometheus or anything to gather information, or do your clients who use it, are they looking at a secondary source to see, okay, I see that it went down, but here's what I'm looking at, it tells me why?
Yeah, what we always want to have is that the guys who are actually managing or hosting the site would be also present when we are doing the load testing. So usually the customers have some kind of monitoring software already installed. So we bring the load, and then we can see what is happening on the browser side. So we can track all the requests, and we can tell that, okay, these requests these are the slowest ones, and maybe these are the problems. But of course, we need also the other part, and then usually we are using any tool that customers already using. But maybe in the future releases, we'll always also have a sort of a client that you can install on your environment, and then we'll collect all the data. But that's sort of a future plans.
Okay, well, good to know that's part of the roadmap. And I know we're going to go to a demo here in just a minute, but I am curious to find out, like the monitoring that somebody might be using, if they're most of your clients, I would assume, would already be in the cloud. In other words, they're testing in the cloud. Maybe it's a private cloud. It's probably not on premise. A lot of the retail sites have gone they're all on AWS or Azure somewhere on a machine. So they might be using New Relic or some type of monitoring tool like that they would monitor in production. They just spin up another environment to do this test in, or maybe it's pre-production and they monitor it that way. Is that typically how it happens, or do you have clients who are wanting to test on-premise stuff from Supervisor.com?
Yeah, we have both.
Okay.
But of course, AWS and Google, they are growing, so more and more all this web stuff is going there. So yeah. But we have also customers who are actually using our technology in-house. So actually, it's not run from our servers, but they are using their own data center for generating the load. So we ship the sort of the logic and the controllers for there, and then they do it on their own if they want to have it like totally private. So and they can give us access. It could be like some kind of ordering system or something like that, which is not available in public.
Okay, awesome. Well, let's go to the video because I want to show people what this looks like, and you're going to kind of narrate this video. Short video just goes over the overview of Supervisor and what its capabilities are, and we'll go to that video right now.
What I have here is just the standard WooCommerce website. This is actually my wife's web store, but she gave me a permission to use it in this demo. And it's pretty standard stuff. It's hosted in Lightsail, so it has 4 gigs of RAM, 2 CPUs, and it's they've also installed Cloudflare to boost the performance of the website. So yeah, let's use that for our demo here. So here is the sort of the live view of our product for your website. So what is happening here is that there is one user, one of our virtual users, that are constantly clicking around the website and going through each and every page what there is, and trying to find problems. And they are scrolling the pages, and they are adding products to the shopping cart and doing all that stuff, and totally automatically. And we can see here that most of the users have a good experience. So basically that means that the load time is under 2 seconds. And actually there has been one user that has had a bad experience. So yeah, maybe there's something that we should look at. So here we are collecting all the page loads. There's different columns here. So we have server, that means the server time. And for more experienced people, that's the time to first byte. And then we have the browser time, and that's how long does it take for the browser to render the website. So it little bit gives you idea that do you have a problem on the server side, or maybe you have too complex code, too much JavaScript or something else going on there, and maybe some third-party integrations, and that could be causing the problems, and then it's on the browser side. So this already helps you to a little bit locate where the problems might be. And if we sort the column, we can see some of the pages that have had problems. And so, for example, there is add to cart button. So that's basically something that's typically you cannot cache that. So then it comes down to the resources of your hosting server, that how fast it's working, and so on. So we already know that, okay, maybe we should check what is happening on these pages, and maybe there's something that we need to fix. And additionally, we also collect each and every request that's made by those browsers. So one web page is typically built from, let's say, from 50 to hundreds of requests, and it could be that there is just some requests that are slow, and they are actually blocking the site to load. And there is like you shouldn't have more than 60 requests on your website, because the browsers don't load them all at the same time. They load them little by little so that they wouldn't cause like denial of service attacks on your website. So it's a good idea to try to keep the request count as low as possible. But here we can also sort the data, so we can see that which requests are actually causing the problems, and maybe we could then drill in those specific requests and try to fix them. But okay, let's go to the fun part and do some load testing. So I click the load testing button here, and I can choose how many users I would like to use for the test. But okay, since this is my first time load testing this website, let's just use 150 users here, and I'll click checkout. Okay, it brings me to the Stripe, and I have already my card stored there, so I can just click the pay button, and then the load test starts. On the left side of the screen, you can see this hstop command from the console. So basically, what it's showing you is all the processes that's run by the hosting server, and on the top we can see how busy the processors are. So this server, as we saw from the light sail control panel, has 2 vCPUs, and they are not so busy right now. But let's see what happens when we start adding users. And currently we have 4 users. We can see all of their screens. We have the same data that we have on the live view previously here, so we can see what the website speed is, and then we can see a graph here also that how it's going. So let's see when it starts to add users. Now we are at 34, 42 users, and 52 users. Still the load time is pretty okay. And now, we had to stop the test because there was actually, I think it just took some time for our monitoring to notice that there was too many browsers who started to be too slow, and then we cut it, and we were able to handle 52 users with this setup. So that wasn't so good. 52 concurrent users, that could easily happen to anybody. And even if this is on Amazon, AWS, and we have Cloudflare, and still we weren't able to scale. So let's see what happens with a bigger server. I have here also a test version of the same web store. It has 16 gigs of RAM and 4 vCPUs. So let's do the same test there. So I just jump to the right view. Again, we have the hstop running here. Now we see that we have 4 CPUs here, and let's just do the load test. Yep. And we'll use the same amount of users, so let's do for 150. We go to checkout. Perfect. Pay. And now we are starting the test again with 4 users, and then little by little we start to scale more users. Again, we get the first sort of baseline speed here. So with 4 users, the load time is under 1 second, so that's really good. And let's see what happens when we start to ramp up more users, and let's pay attention what's happening to the CPUs here when more users start to come in. So now we are at 14 users. Already when they are coming, we start to see that all the CPUs are starting to max out, but they come down pretty fast, so that's sort of okay. We are now at 34 users, and we can see all the PHP FPM processes being run because more and more users, so we need more and more PHP processes here, and we can see that the CPUs start to be more and more saturated, so those meters are not actually going down so much anymore. It's like it's 100% all the time, and then just a little bit, and again we are using all the CPU power we have. Now we are at 94 users, 95 users, and we are basically maxing out the CPU. So I think this is going to crash pretty soon. The site is starting to be too slow. There's like the time to first byte, the server speed time is 44.4 seconds, so that's totally too slow. And what we could see that actually when we doubled the amount of CPUs, we actually could handle double amount of users. So previously it was 51 users, and now we are 105 users. So that's sort of idea what type of things you can find out from your website. And this is really typical for PHP-based applications. They need a lot of CPU power, and you need to scale it based on that information. But yeah, that was the demo. I encourage everybody to try it out. It's super easy, as you saw. So try it with your own website and see what happens. Thanks.
Thank you for sharing that demo, Lauri. And I'd like to talk a little bit about the future of Supervisor. Can you share anything about where you're taking this product and the vision? You shared a little bit about the roadmap in the future, but where are we going with the product?
Yeah, so one of the big things that we are thinking about is how can we help not so technical people to fix also the problems. So even if you can get already a lot of information with our tool that what is breaking down the site or why it's slow, I think you still need a lot of experience to use that information. And we want to find ways to sort of tell that, okay, please add 4 gigabytes of RAM, or please change these settings on your SQL server or something like that. These are like super simple examples, but we would like to have the tool to be more better in guiding people to actually how to make those sites fast. So that's the biggest things that we are going to do.
If you're able to accomplish that, my friend, you will have cracked open the Holy Grail of performance testing, because I know for decades that is what load testing tool vendors have been seeking after to do. And I think to me, it's taking somebody who understands the typical things you would look at and kind of building out rule sets that say, if you see this, do this. If it kind of guides you through that. It takes somebody with experience to set up those kind of rule sets, and you've got the experience, so that may be what separates you from somebody who's just developing a tool, even a load testing tool, and somebody who actually understands how the whole thing works. That's a big challenge, and I think a lot of the vendors who are trying to build machine learning and AI algorithms around that to build those rule sets, that's where the real value is going to be in the products in the future. So. If you do that, I'm definitely going to be watching you very closely to see how you accomplish that.
Yeah, we'll try our best. Yeah, for sure.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience and how people can check out Supervisor.com if they wanted to try it out or something like that?
Yeah, just log into Supervisor.com and you can try it for free. You already get a lot of information on what is happening on your site. And then if you have never load tested your website, you can try it there and see what happens, at just 100 users. It sounds like a small amount, but I'm telling you that there are so many websites that can't even handle 100 users. And so that could be a fun test for everybody to do. And it's super easy. You don't need to install anything. Just type in your domain and you're all set.
And if they do need additional help and they want to know more, they could actually just contact you, and you could have somebody walk them through some things or things to think about how they might set up a test, right?
Yeah, for sure. And we can do it. We can also, of course, do the first test together, because it can be a little bit scary to just start crashing your own site. But we are more than happy to help anybody who needs better speed for their websites, because I think everybody hates slow internet. So that's what we're trying to do.
One note I will probably need to add here is that we don't want people load testing other people's sites without their permission. And if you're going to load test your production site, be aware that it could bring it down. So you may want to just make sure that you're prepared for that. If you're going to take your production website down, just know what you're getting into, because it's like for some people, I always use this analogy. If you're familiar with the cartoon Dennis the Menace, he's always getting in trouble. The old cartoon. It's like handing Dennis the Menace a machine gun and saying, "Go play in the yard. What bad could happen?" So just keep that in mind. So.
Yeah, for sure. Only your own websites, even though we have a lot of security measures there. So we will actually stop the tests before it crashes completely. But yeah. And if you want to test for really big amounts, then we'll verify that you actually own the site. So it's not open for everybody to test whatever.
Awesome. Thank you, Lauri, for being on the show, and thank you for sponsoring the SMC Journal podcast. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, you're doing great work, so keep it on.
All right. All right, well, that's today's show. I hope that you learned something about Supervisor and Lauri, and I enjoyed the conversation. If you'd like more episodes about this kind of a topic, if you like performance engineering, performance testing, just contact me. I'm really easy to find on the internet, scottmoore.consulting. There's a link to my LinkedIn profile and load tester. You can also email me at help@scottmoore.consulting, as well as just subscribe to this YouTube channel. It'd be great if you subscribed, click that little bell so you'll get notified. And this show actually comes out twice a week. It's every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time in the U.S. Sometimes we even do live broadcasts. So it's one of those things where if I get a hankering, I'll go live and answer questions or ask questions, and we might be doing some more of that. I also want to give a quick shout out to all my friends who are speaking at conferences. You're finally getting together in physical locations, not just virtual, and you're speaking and you're talking and you're continuing to communicate the wonderful value of performance testing and engineering in IT. So shout out to you, and we'll see you on the next episode of the SMC Journal. This is Scott Moore, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.